Hello, my name is Michelle, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. Ashley Uhl is the owner of Ashley Uhl Consulting, which offers client service consulting for designers. Ashley has been cultivating a love of service her entire lifetime. She's traveled extensively throughout the world early in her life, and by doing that, she developed this incredible respect and understanding and interest in the five-star service she encountered. She's going to give us some examples of that on the podcast today. Eager to expand her knowledge of service, she gained her degree in psychology with a minor in business from the University of Missouri. She followed that up with formal training and with work in human relations, sales, and presentations from top professional development company Dale Carnegie, allowing her to expand her ability to create memorable client experiences and prevent conflicts and frustrations between the business and client. And again, that's going to be an awesome topic for us to dig into. Later, Ashley spent over 4 years working with and understanding the expectations of high net worth clients when she worked for Morgan Stanley. And then while she was there, she bought her first house and started designing and decorating her own home and then helping other people, and then realized that was not for her. So her husband mentions to her, and the story is so cute, well, here's how you maybe could marry all these things that you love, and here's what you could do. And so that's exactly what she did. She is a client service consultant and one of the only ones that is exclusively focused for interior designers. And what she does is her goal is to show you how to give greater value to your design clients and have that five-star service experience in mind when you do that. And then she helps you create a step-by-step plan for that. Ashley and I met at Luann Live, and we realized how much we have in common and how our love is for the design industry and to support the industry with a lot of the skill set that we learned in a corporate environment. And she's such a delight. She's so fun to talk to, and she really is focused. She has such a heart of gold, and I think you guys are going to all pick up on that as you hear her today. So we're going to talk about focusing on the client experience, how to avoid conflict, and some really actionable items. So listen in, and I know you're going to get some great nuggets of very valuable information to bring back into considering your business. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hey, Ashley, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I just want to, again, let everybody know that you and I met at Luann Live. And you were there as a sponsor and had a table, and we got to talk for just a few minutes there, and then we set up an appointment afterwards just to get to know each other. And I think we have so much in common, and it was such a pleasure meeting you there.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Michelle. Absolutely. I agree. We definitely do have a lot in common, and you were very much kind of a ray when you came by my table, and it was great to talk to you and continue to connect with you.
So Ashley, why don't we start off with you telling everybody a little bit about your business? Where'd you get started? You know, what's brought you to here, and where is here?
Sure. So I will start with where I am now, and then we'll kind of work our way back so it makes sense. So right now what I do is I consult with interior designers on client service and client experience. So I really teach them how to provide a high-level client experience for their clients in a way that's kind of efficient for both them and the client. It's profitable. It creates great loyalty with their clients so they can become long-term. And I do that with consultations, and I'm moving also to live classes and online video recordings. So that's what I'm doing. How I got here is a little bit of a kind of a lifelong story, but I won't make it too long. So when I was growing up, we traveled a lot, started to travel a lot internationally, and I really started to observe, even as a kid, as nerdy as it may sound, really started to observe and appreciate the service and the level of service and the level of dedication of taking care of clients. Not that we don't do that here in the US, but I just hadn't really experienced it in the same way as I was a little bit older, and we're not visiting the same kinds of places here in the US as we were, when we were traveling, and, going to the hotels and the restaurants that we were going to. I just noticed all of the ways that they had been trained, all the details, the way that they really, really work in teams to take care of clients. It's not so much like, oh, that's not my job. That's not my job. It's, these 5-star places are trained to be a team, to notice the needs of a client, not just my client. It's just everyone's client and customer. And so I really, really started to love that, and I want to kind of continue that. So when I was in college, I studied psychology and business. Then when I later got out, I worked at Dale Carnegie, which is a top professional development company. They teach human relations and leadership and sales and all of that stuff. And Dale Carnegie is a huge, huge foundation of what I do and the principles that I teach through what I learned while working there, the trainings that I took from them, and also just the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So much of what I teach is Dale Carnegie stuff because I see how incredibly impactful and helpful it is. And then later that translated into me working at Morgan Stanley, where it's a wealth management firm. We had high net worth clients, and I saw all that needed to take place to work with these high net worth clients, what their expectations were, the processes that we needed to do, the ways that you could really, kind of take that experience up to the next level, all of that stuff. And while I was at Morgan Stanley, my husband and I purchased our first home, and I started to design it, started to work with some family and friends and get referrals, and pretty quickly realized, okay, being a designer isn't for me. I like doing it for our house, but I don't necessarily like doing this as a career. And so it was my husband who said, well, Ashley, what you really love, right, about this whole process is the client experience. And that's what you've always been interested in. Why don't you teach designers how to do that? And so that's how I got here. It really was my husband just having a light bulb moment, and then I took it from there.
That sounds awesome. Now, how many years ago or how recently have you started this?
So this was about a little under 3 years ago.
Okay.
That I started this. So the design was for about a year and a half, 2 years before that, but Ashley Uhl Consulting is a little under 3 years.
That's awesome. Don't you love how other people can sometimes look at us and see things that we have to offer that we don't see? I remember years ago, probably 10 years ago in my career, reaching out to someone and asking them, what do you see in me that you think I could use to help other people? Because sometimes we just don't see it ourselves. We tend to think that what we know is what everybody else knows.
Yes.
Until we kind of realize that, no, we're different. And now it's funny.
Right.
Most of my clients and friends, they all are, Michelle, you're a unicorn. You're so weird. And I know that because I love the money and I love the creativity and I love the metrics and I love these things. So, everybody just, Michelle, you're a unicorn. Right. But you tend to think that other people do life and business and have thoughts similar to yours until you realize that there is something different about how you see things or special about how you approach things.
Yeah.
So how cool to have a husband that saw that in you.
Yes. Yeah. And I frankly would have never, ever in a million years come up with his idea. So I am definitely very thankful that he said something, because I would have never known to combine them. And even when he told me, I remember I was vacuuming. I was vacuuming our family room, and he was talking to me, and he said that, and I looked at him and I thought, well, that's kind of a weird idea. I don't know if that will work. And I just kind of continued to think on it and think on it and think about what it would be and how I would do it. And then it was like it wasn't like a light bulb moment for me. It was a slow kind of coming to the realization that maybe I can do this. But yeah, my husband is a wonderful man. He knows that I adore him, and he really kind of notices what my strengths are and the ways that I can use them, and points out, like you said, the things that are going on in my head that don't go on in other people's, that we just assume, well, everybody thinks about the client experience. And it's like, no, I didn't ever until I met you, And so it really is so helpful to have somebody outside of you that can show you, hey, you can really use this to help other people.
Which is really what we do every day with our clients,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Look into their lives, we look into their experiences, and we say, hey, this is what you have working for you. Let me just show you how to maximize it. And now, go build on that.
Right. Whether
it's their ability to make money on the profitability side, whether it's good business practices, client experience practices, whatever it is. It's trying to look in and see something in someone that maybe they don't see for themselves.
That's right. Yeah. One of the biggest compliments that I have gotten was in a testimonial, and it was like, okay, this is exactly the goal I was going for. And she said, that I was helping her to see things from both her perspective and the client's perspective. And that is the exact goal that I have. I don't want designers to just think, I'm just telling you what is best for the client. That won't work, right? That's not sustainable. I'm trying to help designers see what is going to work for both of them and how they're both experiencing the design process, because they're going to experience it so differently because of what we're talking about, right? That they don't know, that all of these clients don't know what the design process is and how everything works through it. So I'm really helping people to see from both perspectives. You see it this way, but the client is feeling confused. So here's how we can kind of bridge that gap, just like you're doing with money.
Yeah, one of my favorite, I love getting a testimonial. We all love getting testimonials, yeah. Regardless of what we do in our job and career. When it's recognized and noticed, there's something about it. But I've gotten a couple, two that come to mind just because I read them recently and they really struck me. One was, Michelle won't only grow your business, she'll also grow your heart.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a wonderful one. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was like, she's not going to just grow your business, she's going to grow your heart. And I thought that right there, like I could just hang up and be done, right?
Yes.
I'm not done, but that just is so good to me. And then another one that I love was, it said, Michelle, thanks so much for seeing what I couldn't see, cutting through the BS, calling me out on my crap, and making me do something about it. And I'm like, yes. Yes. One says I'm growing your heart. The other says I'm kicking your butt and calling out the BS. But it all goes together.
Right. And that together is who you are and what you're doing. And that's an awesome thing to be able to manage all of that is awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I want to jump in and talk a little bit about this client experience and service model. My first job, and actually I can't remember if I told you this when we, talked over the phone after the event. My first job right out of college, I had multiple service jobs growing up. So I worked in a pharmacy and worked with people to give them their meds. And so I had to do all the retail checkout of that. I worked in the service industry as a waitress. Oh my gosh, hats off to waiters and waitresses. They need the hugs, carrying all that stuff and serving a bunch of people that are hungry and hungry and everything. But I did that for a while. I worked in a brain injury rehab center.
Oh my goodness.
Supported all the therapists one summer. Yeah. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
I did a lot of service-based things. And then my first job out of college was with Dun & Bradstreet Software, and they put me on the service help desk for the accounts payable program.
Yes, I do remember you telling me that. Yeah.
And our very first thing was, the customer's not always right, but they think they are. And then, right? Because I used to always hear the customer's always right. And we're sitting here fighting with ourselves. No, they're not. They really are not. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not.
Right.
And I read a statement. I'm struggling now to remember who said it, but here's what he said. He said, the customer is not always right, but they are powerful.
Oh,
And that
yes.
shifted my thinking, right?
Yeah.
Because coming from the service background, I can remember being irritated when people didn't read the documentation, they didn't read the email, they didn't do what I told them to do or what the company told. And I was like, come on, people. But you couldn't call them out on it because
Right.
then you weren't letting them be right, or they would call and demand something that just wasn't right.
Yeah.
And then there was always that angst of I had to almost like suck it up like they were right, kind of to your point of making them always the good guy and I'm always the bad guy.
Yeah.
And so we cannot sustain that, and it
Right.
causes anger and frustration and
Yes.
irritability. But when I read they're not always right, but they are powerful, it shifted my thinking into, okay, how do we use the power in a good way? Kind of like the force, right? Luke, use
Yes.
the force for good. And so what do we do with the power, and how do we control the power? Because it's not about being right or wrong.
Right. Yes. So one of the things that, well, there are really two things that I'm always focusing on and trying to teach designers what when they're dealing with these clients and you're trying to create an experience, but you're also trying to deal with sometimes they're frustrating you. These are two, and these are definitely Dale Carnegie. These are not just brilliant thoughts of my own. So one is to try honestly to see things from the other person's perspective, because like you said, they may not always be right, but they think they're right. And then to also talk in terms of the other person's benefit. So those two things are really the crux of so much of what I'm teaching people, because when you try to honestly see things from other people's perspective, it softens you. Sometimes it actually drives my husband crazy. He's like, Ashley, just blame somebody for something. And it's like, but you want to see things from what is happening in their own eyes, right? You want to put yourself in their shoes and try to see what they are really going through, why they're feeling this. Sometimes people blame us and it's not even us, right? It's just they've had a bad day, whatever sort of issue they're going through. So if we try to honestly see things from their perspective, it does really two things. One, if it's sort of a preventative thing, this is how you can start to see what kind of a process that you should have, what information you need to be sharing at what point in your design process, so that people are going to be aware of things. The biggest frustration that I think happens in any business, no matter if it's interior design, manufacturing business cards, going to a restaurant, the difference between expectation and reality is the number one source of frustration for a client. And so if you're honestly trying to see things from their perspective before you're kind of even dealing with clients, and you can create a process around that, you're going to be able to really, really manage those expectations from the beginning, and kind of throughout the entire process. And that's always what I remind my clients of, is you don't want to just manage expectations from that initial consultation or after they've signed the LOA and then you go on your way. That's what I see most of the time. If we're talking about setbacks and challenges, it's just at the very beginning, and then we kind of forget about it. And then that means that the client forgets about it. And so you really want to, as you're moving into the process and getting into the times where things are going to be more difficult, if it's, now we're doing the construction, or now we're doing the orders and now things are back ordered, right before you get into that, you want to be letting them know, okay, remember how we talked before about things are going to get tough? Okay, this is the time, so just get ready. We are capable of handling this, but I just want to let you know there could be some surprises coming, right? So you're kind of doing this preventative, trying to see things from their perspective, even before they have to experience them. And then when you're getting in a debate, which you don't want to get in a debate with the client, but if you are having a disagreement and a conflict, if you really try to see from their perspective why they're upset, it's so much easier to deal with them than if you just are thinking of things from your own perspective, which is natural, right? We're always like trying to defend ourselves and see
Right.
things from just our perspective. But the more you can see things from their perspective, the better the entire situation is going to be. And like you said, they are powerful, and we have online reviews now, and it can be scary. And
Yeah.
so you do have to kind of learn how to manage the conflict, by trying to see things from their point of view and putting yourself in their shoes and really asking yourself, okay, what can I reasonably do to help this client? And are they being reasonable? 98%, 95% of people are reasonable, but there are always going to be those few monsters. So try to make your judgments based on the 95% of the most of the people who are just, going to reason with you once you kind of let them calm down.
Yeah, two things. Well, there are lots of things, but two things that come to mind quickly when you said that. One is, and I do the same thing when I'm working with my clients and they call me and hey, Michelle, I have an issue. What do I do? And I'll say, okay, tell me what you think, what you feel, what you see from your side. All right, now, how is the client experiencing this? What are they saying? What are they doing? How are they seeing this? And then what I encourage is, I'm a visual, right? We're all pretty visual in this space.
Yeah.
And I teach them to visually imagine that there's a table.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it feels like they're on one side and the person is on the other. So it feels very conflicting, right? Like it's me against you. And I said, now I want you to, in your mind, pick up your chair and move it to the same side of the table that they're on. And I want you to sit beside them. Because if you do that in your mind, if you put yourself sitting beside them instead of across from them, look at the problem as something separate from the two of you, but the two of you are going in together to solve it.
Oh, that's great.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, so I love that.
Yeah, we're mentally putting ourselves in the position of, I'm not against you, I'm with you. It's us against the problem. Right. And then that immediately shifts your perspective. It is hard to fight with someone when you're sitting on the same side of the table.
Yes.
When you're sitting across the table, to lean in, to be aggressive, to feel like you are conflicting. And then I usually ask them, what do you want the outcome to be? What do you really want the outcome to be? And what would they want it to be? And are you even in agreement on the outcome? Then let's work towards the solution. Because if you are not even in agreement on the outcome, you got to start there. You've got to both want the same thing at the end,
right? To
try to work towards it. And one thing, I don't know if you've heard of Donald. I think it's Donald Miller with Story Brand. He has these little business tidbits that he sends out every day in little videos. And one of his that he sent out, that when you're having difficulty with a client, not to respond to them or answer, I understand, because that just makes them angry. Unless you really, really do understand. If you have absolutely gone through what they've gone through, then you have the right to say it. But 9 times out of 10, we've not gone through exactly what they're going through. And so for us to say, I understand, in those words, makes them feel like we're diminishing it or like we're putting them off.
Yeah.
And so instead, he says again, it's that same kind of thing of putting ourselves on the same side of the table, seeing it from their side. He says, responding by almost saying something like, that would be difficult. I can see where you're having difficulty with that. Let me jump in and try to help you. Let me try to understand. Help me understand. It goes back to that, seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yes.
And so just the idea of, we all have a worldview. We all have a project view. We see what we see. They don't see all of the detail that we're living with and dealing with on their behalf. They don't even know about it. And that's why they've hired us to handle it. So they have no clue. But we also have no clue of the stress that they have on their side. I know, I guess maybe a couple of years ago, we went through and did some light remodeling in our home. And one of the things we did was we had the entire inside of our house painted. And I've got to tell you, while that would be considered light remodeling, it was a week. We had, I think, a bathroom, and we had my office were the only 2 rooms on the main floor that we had access to. We didn't have
Oh,
kitchen,
geez.
we didn't have family room. We have a 2-story foyer with a catwalk across, so we could barely get to our bedrooms. So for a week, my grown sons and my husband and I, well, they were college age, but they were home for the summer. We ate our meals in our bedroom. We did everything in the master bedroom. It was the only place we had to go out and buy food and bring it. It was just a mess. And it was stressful because they were painting
Yeah.
the ceilings and all the walls and everything's moved away. And it just kept going on. And they had all the trim, and we have lots of trim with 22-foot ceilings. And
Oh, goodness.
oh my gosh, Ashley. But it put me, I immediately started thinking, okay, this is how my clients feel. Like I've been so far removed from that, right?
Yeah, right.
I was on the side of always solving the problem, not having to live in it. And even though mentally I knew that I could handle it, it was frustrating. And our senses were heightened. Our anger was heightened. I mean, everything, but because we were not in our norm. And I love how you tell them, what's the first question that somebody says when they call us, or at least to me, every job I've ever had, whether it was design, consulting, okay, what's your process? How do you work?
Right.
That's what they want to know. How do I get started, and how do you work? How do I engage? What's going to happen next?
Right.
But I love your point of halfway down, they forget what they signed in that LOA. They totally forget. So this is a constant, ongoing conversation from the beginning to the end.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about, because I don't know about you, maybe tell me what your viewpoint is on this. I think we have to give enough information to engage, but if you give so much information that it's so overwhelming, they shut you down and they really don't hear it anyway. So there's a method to what you share and when you share it. Do
Absolutely.
you feel that way as well?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So there definitely is a balance, because I am always encouraging people to, you want to do enough information, but it needs to be timely so that they are paying attention. Because, if we give them like a welcome packet that's 15 pages, okay, well, I'm not paying attention to that. Right? No one has time for that. And we barely even read paper anymore. Right? And so everything needs to be timed so that it makes sense for what's happening maybe right now or 2 steps ahead of us. But we don't want to go through everything constantly. Now, I do always encourage people to go through the entire design process in a concise way and that initial consultation, so they make sure they really understand and that they're on board with that. But kind of every new step, you want to be re-explaining in more detail. Okay, now we're going to be in this step, and this is what you can expect from this step. And if there are going to be any changes in communication or whatever, you want to be continually letting them know what to expect for that step, because they don't know how they're going to transition from one step to the next, right? And only you do. And so you want to be giving just enough information so that they feel comfortable, but not so much that, like you said, they're shutting down and that you just go, I don't know what you're saying, kind of like you do, I'm sure, with the numbers. My husband, his background is corporate finance. And so he does all of the numbers for me. And if he talks too much about them, I go, I'm not listening anymore. I have to just be honest, and so he's like, okay, let's take this little bit by little bit. And, he re-explains it to me. So yes, you really do want to take it kind of step by step with clients and let them know what to expect for each one of those stages, both the good and the possible bad that can come from it. So you make sure that you're constantly managing the expectations from the beginning to the end, even if it's something small like, okay, the installation day, and you really let them know this is what's going to happen on the installation day. We're going to come in a week. I am going to have these people here with me. You let them know who's going to be in their house. It's a lot to have a bunch of strangers in your house all day. You're not going to be there. Maybe some of these people, right, the delivery people, you've never met, you've never seen them. And so you really kind of want to walk them through what to expect, how they're going to know when to come back home, all of that stuff. You really do save those details for each step of the way and the new challenges that is brought on by that new stage.
Okay, again, a couple of things here.
Yeah.
First, all of this is assuming that we have a process.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
You're right.
no,
Yes.
you don't need to be sorry. I'm just saying we're speaking as if,
Right.
and we have people that
Correct.
I've worked with people that have, are honestly, they are over $1 million in revenues and they're telling me they have no process. So,
Oh, yes, you're right. I do. I am making that assumption. Yes, you
right.
definitely have to have a design process.
Okay, right. So we have to have a process, a
Yes.
beginning to end process. And
Yeah.
here's the second part of that. We've got to here, blah, blah, all mixed up, getting excited here now, Ashley. We have to so own our own process.
Mm-hmm.
We have to own it with everything in us. We have to believe in it. We have to trust in it. We have to know that it works so that then we can explain it. I have seen many people over and over and over have a process, write a process, borrow a process, buy a process. That's fine. Don't care how you get your process.
Mm-hmm.
You got your process, but they don't own it. They have not 100% bought into that's what it's doing, or they don't understand it because they purchased it from somebody and they weren't fully explained. And so what they do is they either cut it up so that it doesn't make sense and doesn't really support where they're going, or they don't own it enough that they're willing to sit down and talk about every part of it to the client.
Right.
And if you cannot take your contract or your letter of agreement or your process and stand behind every word of it and explain it and talk about it, you're not ready to use it.
Yes.
Right? Because half of the time, this isn't because it's not because we're not working hard on this side. It's because we don't either understand it, we don't have it written, we don't have a plan.
Right.
So we're going by the seat of our pants. And so then when we do that, we're taken as off guard as our client is. We have no way to protect them, no way to put up a barrier, no way to give them the 2 steps in advance that you're suggesting, because we don't even know.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yes, like you said, you have to know your own process so well. You need to know it backwards and forwards, left to right. So like you said, you can't explain it. And a lot of times, if you don't own your process, then guess who's going to own it? Your client. And they're going to start trying to lead you.
Right, because you can't even set an expectation.
Exactly.
So, right?
Yeah.
Having a process and owning it and being comfortable with it and allows us to then set an expectation to, like you said, try to bridge the gap between expectation and reality so that we can get them closer. If we were to tell our clients that working with me is going to reduce all of your stress, that's not true. It's not true. It's going to reduce a lot of their stress, but it's not going to reduce all of their stress.
Absolutely.
We set a wrong expectation, right?
Yeah.
We have to be careful of the words that we choose to explain our process.
Yes, absolutely. You don't want to just paint like a sunshiny picture because it creates so much frustration. It's as simple as like when you go to a restaurant and they give you a wait time and then now it's over. Okay, now I'm mad. I was fine because you gave me an expectation. And so that was what I had in my mind. But now you're over it. I wish you wouldn't have undersold me on it, right? I want you to tell me actually more, so that it's easier rather than the other way. It doesn't behoove anyone to say that this is going to be stress-free, that there's not going to be any situation, any sort of challenge that could cause stress and frustration. That doesn't help anyone. So you really do want to be realistic. So I always tell designers, you want to tell them what can happen, right? These challenges, but you also want to say what you're going to do about it. So you don't want to just freak them out. You want to say, these things can possibly happen. We are well trained. We will take things as they come. Most of the things we can prevent. What we can't prevent, we'll discuss with you and recommend a best course of action, right? So you want to show that you're the leader, you have a plan, you know how to take care of these things. That's what your job is. But there are things that could come up. There are surprises, all of that stuff. It really does set the stage for everything to go better because you're letting them know, hey, all of this stuff could happen. And either you're right, and then they're better able to deal with it, or you're wrong, and then nothing, really disastrous happen, and then everybody's that much happier. So definitely don't just paint a sunshiny picture.
And if we were to even take a step back from that, so, if we were to really kind of rabbit trail back a little bit here, this all is also assuming that we're working with our ideal client, right?
Yes. Oh,
we have to start with, are we working with our ideal client? And then are we working with our ideal process? Are we explaining our ideal process? Are we explaining the reality of what's going to happen? And, here's the truth of the matter. If a homeowner were to try to do everything that we do for them as designers or workrooms or stagers or whatever our job is, they're going to run into the same doggone issues we're running into. They just are.
Right.
They just don't know they're coming. We know they're coming.
Exactly.
I mean, it's true, right?
Right.
They're run into the same delays. They're going to, if they ordered the same things we ordered, it'd be delayed, it'd be back ordered, it'd come in broken, it'd come in the wrong color. The same doggone things happen to them. And so it's telling them, this is part of the process and what happens. And so what this means is, again, we're on the same side of the table. We're fighting for you on your behalf, buffering as much as we can. And if we cannot buffer you from it, we will discuss it with you and we will give you our expert opinion. My goodness, I'd pay for that all day long.
Yes, absolutely. And, one of the things that I learned working at Morgan Stanley is doing exactly this. Now, they have a legal obligation to do that. To when you're bringing on a new client, of course, you cannot promise any sort of return. What you can promise is that the market will go down. I can guarantee you that, right? But I cannot guarantee you any sort of return legally. And this is going to go up and down, but I am here as an expert to work next to you, to know what your goals are and to know how to maneuver around this. And like you said, I'm going to have problems in the market just as you were, but I know how to react to it. And so I was able to translate so much of that into this, realizing that it doesn't help anyone to just say, all of these things are going to work out for you. You want to let them know there are going to be challenges, but we are here to work with you on them. And that's my role as a professional, is to be able to handle these in the best way possible.
I love it so much. So let me ask you this. I'm going to tell you a little bit of my experience that just happened to me that made a difference in a buying decision for me for a luxury product. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then I want to talk about how we can translate something like that into an elevated client service or an elevated client experience. Yeah. So just within the last couple of weeks, I purchased a new car.
Okay.
I know, right? So kind of excited, and at the same time, you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so much money! Money is
oh yes,
all at one time." And I was like, "Oh."
The up and down emotions, definitely.
Yeah. And, thankfully for Profit First, so big shout out to Profit First and my Master Your Profit course. I had been saving up knowing that I was going to buy a car. I'd planned to buy it another year out, but there were some things that happened that necessitated us buying early, but I was able to pay cash for it. Mm-hmm. And that is a Profit First win on my behalf. But and so anyway, we were looking at cars, and so we were testing out a couple of different things. And I'll tell you, I ended up settling on a Lexus RX 350 and really like it, happy about it. But here were a couple of things that happened and a couple of things that the Lexus salespeople in our local area told us. Now, I don't know if this is for Lexus everywhere or if it's just for the dealership that I work with. We already have another Lexus, so this was a second purchase from them. But they made the comment that when they were looking at the brands, the luxury brands that they wanted to be like, that over time, what seems luxury becomes commonplace.
Sure.
Right? What seems anything becomes commonplace. So then you have to change it again, just like marketing. At some point, we all start to understand how marketing is being done. It's got to be shifted. Everybody understands what you're doing on Instagram. It's got to be shifted. So they were talking to us. It was one of the things that made us really consider them again. One of the things they said that they now offer is they recognized they wanted their clients, when they come in to get work done on the cars or, service, oil change, tires aligned, whatever it is, that they noticed that they wanted their customers to have the best experience possible. So there are two things they offer. Number one, they offer free exterior car washes every day, all day, anytime.
Oh, that's nice.
Literally drive up and say, please wash my car. Now, they're not going to get inside your car, but they're
Sure.
going to do an external car wash for you
Yeah.
immediately every day. He
That's
said you could drive up here every day if you wanted, and we would wash your car.
wow.
Okay. So we're just like, oh my gosh, we didn't even know that, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
The
that is.
second thing they said to me is they just started this month
Mhm.
that if you have any service needs, you can call them and schedule an appointment. They will drive to your home or your place of work. They will pick up your car, service it, and bring it back to you anywhere within a 75-mile radius.
Wow.
Okay. Do you know how hard it is for me to stop what I'm doing, drive down there, make an appointment, get the oil change, drive back? I'm sitting in their little luxury place or anything I have to do, but it's that I don't want to have to leave my house. I really don't want to have to do
Right.
that. We're scheduling a lot of that on the weekends for car maintenance. But the fact that they will come to my house, and if they have to have it for multiple days, they will bring the loaner to my house.
Yes.
And
That's
all of that is for
awesome.
free for being a Lexus owner.
Right.
When I looked at other cars that we were looking at, even though pricing was similar, they didn't have that level of service. And so that
Yeah.
level of service is so elevated. They're thinking so much about the experience that I'm going to have while I'm there.
Right.
I was like, I'll pay for that. Like, I'll
Yes.
pay for that car just so that I can I'll literally call them to say, can you come get my car and wash it? Now, I don't know if they're going to I don't know if they're going to mix those two, but you see what I'm saying? And so of course, I was speaking to the manager of the dealership, and we were talking about luxury things and elevated service as just a general topic, but I thought that was quite shocking. But the minute he said, once we elevate with everybody else, somebody's going to elevate again.
Right.
Talk to me about how that translates into how we have elevated service, because if we're doing what everybody else is doing, there's a minimum amount of client service and client experience that we need to have. But how do we really set our businesses apart, Ashley? How do we do that?
Sure. So there are kind of two main things that I always have people focus on. So first is what you're talking about with them bringing the car to you and all of that stuff, which absolutely is amazing, is to make it easy. You want to make things as easy as possible on your clients, and the easier that it is, the more you can charge. If you think about like Walgreens, if you buy a bottle of aspirin at Walgreens, it costs a fortune compared to Walmart. But sometimes it's just easier to go to Walgreens than going to Walmart, right? The parking lot's so much smaller, and they even talk about it in
Amen.
their ad, right? And so they say
I like
in their
Walmart
ad,
prices, but oh my gosh, I'd just about rather take a beating than have to go there.
oh, right? You just don't want to make that effort.
Yeah.
And as our lives have become that much more difficult and that much busier, we will pay for convenience. And so the more that you can do in terms of making things easy with, like, let's say even the installation. So a few weeks out before the installation is happening, you could make up this either an a la carte service, or you could just make it part of what your overall fees are for, or to have delivery people come in and take out the old furniture that you don't want anymore. You could connect them with consignment shops. You could even do that work yourself and talk to consignment shops about what the furniture is, or have partnerships with charities that can take all of this stuff. If you could deal with all of those things, that's one way to just make things easier for your client, so they don't have to worry about all this furniture that we're going to get rid of. Where is it going? I don't want to just dump it, right? I want it to go to a good place. And so you can do all of those things for your client. Or if you're having a kitchen remodel, like you were just talking about having that paint, you can let clients know these are some of the things that you can do to prepare, and you can arrange, maybe even you could have like a meal delivery service set up for them or whatever. It just depends on how much you want to spend, because these things definitely do cost you to get involved with this. So like I said, you could have them as a la carte service, or if you're a really, really high-end designer, these things are just going to be part of what your fees are, and they're expected. And so you just make them part of that overall experience. But they're really, you want to spend time thinking about and talking to your clients about what is stressful about this experience for you, and then you work on putting something preventative in there for them to take that stress away from them, right? With the car, it is absolutely the service. Oh my gosh, it drives me bananas. Like the idea of taking my 3-year-old to the service shop and then
Exactly.
sitting there for 2 hours. I had to do that when he was like 3 months old. It literally is one of the worst days of his 3-year life. I remember how terrible it was. And they did the thing where like they gave me a lower expectation. They told me it was going to be an hour, and then it ended up, I think, being 2 hours and 15 minutes. Oh my gosh. Like every minute past that hour was terrible because they
Yeah.
told me to expect an hour, right? And the reality was so much different. So you want to spend a lot of time focusing on what you can do to make things easier for your client, and then you absolutely can be charging them for them, right? Like Alexis, you know, this is a luxury dealer, so they are expected to deliver that sort of heightened experience. So as you kind of continue on, whether you're a designer or you are in a workroom and you're, but you're putting in, you know, really expensive draperies, you really, really want to figure out what is most difficult and stressful for your clients. Talk to them, find out. We won't always know, but they will tell you, and you want to figure out what to do that you can prevent that. And the next thing is really to make things as personalized as possible. Luxury is almost always personal. You know, the 5-star restaurants and the 5-star hotels, one of the simplest things that they do, and I don't even know how they do it, creepily, they know your name before you even get there. One time we had gone to a hotel in Hawaii, and we had just driven up for the first time, and we walked out and they said, "Hello, Payne family." Payne's my maiden name. And I was like, and I was 12 and thinking, how do they know? How do, you know, somehow they knew what our arrival was going to be. I don't know, you know, but that's what happens is you
Right.
want to make things as personalized as possible. You want to like remember what people like, what their favorite drinks are, you know, if it's for your car, oh, what do they like about their car? You know, is there something that we can extra that we can do? Do they have certain issues? The more personalized and the more that you can remember about your client, that definitely feels like a more luxurious experience that somebody's willing to pay more for.
That's a great explanation, Ashley. And I think two things. One, I've always thought about what can I do to remove barriers to entry.
Mm-hmm.
Barriers
Yes.
for them to work with me, barriers for them to continue working with me, and barriers to get through the process.
Right.
So I think that's a great exercise for each person to do, is to sit down and write down what are the barriers that could be experienced from the moment that they come to me all the way through. Now, some barriers we put up because we want people to self-edit out of our process. Right?
Yes, right.
And that's normal. But for the people that we want to come through, that we want to fall through our business funnel, or process procedures, how do we remove those barriers along the way that don't need to be there? And then another thing I want to say is, you know, we've kind of touched on it, but I want to be very specific with it. Based on the business model that you have and the client that you serve, your level of going above and beyond could be different than someone else's.
Absolutely.
So, right. So if you were at the highest end of luxury, let's say that you're working with, you know, every house is a $10 million build with a $2 million budget for product. That's an entirely different model than I've got $30,000 to refresh this room.
Absolutely.
Totally different. And so, you know, even just remembering a card that is written to them, a call to them. I know one of the things that some of the workrooms do that I think is so great about client service and experience, especially the retail workrooms, because think about this, you know, that 8 to 12 weeks to have a custom piece of furniture or a custom drapery or anything made, that seems like forever. That's
Yeah.
forever. And
Yeah.
you're paying a lot of money for it. You're investing great money in those products. And
Yeah.
you're like worried the person's gone to Tahiti or something. And so,
Yeah.
right? Because you're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I just gave you $15,000. Hello, am I really going to do treatments for that? But
Yes.
what a lot of the workrooms do, especially again with retail, and they do it with their designers as well, is
Yeah.
they give them status updates just as a
Yes.
would. And so it's, hey, Ashley, wanted to let you know we've ordered your fabric. It's all come in. Here's a picture of it. Even if it's in the roll,
Yes.
I'm so excited. We'll be checking it for flaws, and I'll let you know when it moves into the next part of the process. Hey,
Yeah.
Ashley, a week later, we checked all your fabric in. Everything's good. You can even say things like, we've checked the warp and the weft and the pattern, and it's all good. It's usable. There are no flaws we can't work around. And so we're putting yours into production.
Yeah.
Even those things are setting the expectation that it's being worked on and that it's okay. And,
Yes.
and so again, that doesn't have to cost you a lot as far as a physical product, but it will cost you a little bit of time.
Yeah.
However, and again, you don't want to overshare. I'm not asking that you tell them every moment of everything you do, but you do have to have a good process, because if you're showing them that you're doing all the work the night before the install, it will freak them out.
Right.
It forces you to get your own ducks in a row is really what it does. Because to have a good client experience and service, it requires us to do what we're doing in the best way that we can do it.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Yes. So, there can be so much stress around, like you said, I just invested a lot of money. What's happening? I haven't heard from them in weeks. Is my stuff just sitting there? Are they already working on it? And then they can begin to get frustrated, and then they're calling you a lot. And so this is one way that, like you said, you can lead this by giving them these regular status updates. And I always tell people to let your clients know when this is going to be happening. You want to keep all your ducks in a row, like you said. So it's like, every Friday morning, I'm going to be sending you an update. And so then you can let them know every single week. And like you said, send pictures, all of that stuff, so they really know. This is what I always tell my clients. Let them know in simple terms that you are working hard for the money, because that's what clients want to know. That's really their concern.
Right.
Am I just paying for nothing, or is this really going towards something? And so when they see this progress week to week, they get excited, their stress lessens, and they really recognize, wow, I am really paying for something great here. My husband always says, it may be expensive, but my question is really, it's not that, is it expensive? It's, is it worth it? Right? And so you want to be letting people know it is worth it by sharing all of these status updates. And it serves so many purposes. Like you said, it's, keeping your own ducks in a row, but also lessening their stress. And they know, wow, there's really great progress here, and I don't need to be so worried. They're working very hard. They deserve every single penny that I've been paying them. Even though this is costly, I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Right. I know you mentioned, the winning friends and influencing people.
Yes. Uh-huh.
There's another book around customer service that I have loved for probably the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's called Secret Service by John DeJulius.
Oh, I don't know that one.
You don't know that one? Oh, you're going to love it.
Okay.
So, he is an authority on world-class customer service. Mm-hmm. And the idea behind the book is he's the owner of multiple hair salons. Mm-hmm. And he started realizing when people were coming in that it had become so commodity driven that they were just jumping around for where they could get the next haircut. And so they were only retaining a very small percentage of their clients.
Yeah.
So he wanted to try to stop that and get people to keep coming back. And so it tells about the entire client experience, like the entire circle, right? Of how to start and stop and get them back and all the way around to keep coming back.
Yes.
And one of the things he talks about, and you touched on it a second ago, are things about how to highlight when somebody's coming to you for the first time versus repeat clients. So in the salon, for example, if they came in it was their first time, they wore one of the white capes around them.
Oh.
If they were a return client, they were in a black cape. So that as a white cape, everybody in there knew what the rules were. You go up, you speak to them, you say hello, you welcome them. Kind of like when you walk in certain places and they all say, welcome to, you know, and then fill in the blank of the place. Welcome to Moe's. We hear that all the time. Anyway, they also did things by, he talks about, they were helping somebody get ready like for a wedding and something happened that was separate from them, right? Let's say like a dress that couldn't be done. And so the person in his chair was having a mini freak out. He had one of his people stop and go deal with it for this person so that they could relax into the hair service.
Yeah.
So he talks about how to work with other companies to provide service so that you could maybe get discounts from this company that wants to have, you know, somebody to realize that, like HelloFresh, let's just use that. Maybe you could work with HelloFresh, get a couple of coupons, and you know what I mean? So you're working with other companies so that you're creating a service model outside of just your own business, but also in your business. Things like he would find out, you know, their birthdays and all that stuff, and then he did something with it. So he would send them something and give them something and invite them back in and look for ways, and not all of it got paid, but it paid off in the long run.
Yes.
And so just a fantastic book. His name is John R. DeJulius III.
Okay.
I'll put a link in the show notes for everybody, but talk about a book that makes you really think about not just what is your design process or your workroom process or whatever staging process, what is your client service process?
Yes. Did you say what's one of those books?
Oh, I was just saying it makes you stop and think about that.
Oh, I see. Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So it's not enough to say I want to have great client service. It has to be defined internally by your company.
Right.
And then that definition has to have a process behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's part of what you teach as well, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know, everything that you do, you want to have a reason for it. You want it to be efficient. You want it to work for both of you. And, you know, I always say like 80% of the client experience is about systems and processes, and maybe 20%, maybe even 10% is about that sort of personalized experience. So you don't want to rely on the personalized and the luxury too much, as that can become very expensive and very time consuming. But you do want it to be a part. It just, you know, and how much time and how much money you're putting into it, like you said, it really is about what kind of firm you have and what kind of projects you're doing. But those overall percentages kind of stick with them no matter what kind of firm you are, because you want your systems and processes to be the same so that you can take everyone through them, right? He's developing all of these little, like, having the white cape versus the black cape and all of that stuff, but you give yourself that 10 to 20% range to make it personalized, to remember things that are special about them. Everybody loves special attention. There's no one in the entire world who doesn't love some special attention. And when you do things that are personalized, it really makes people feel like, wow, they are paying attention. They're listening to me. They are giving me everything that they've got. They really care, and that's what you want, right? Clients want to know that you care, not that you just care about their money. And so the most effort you can put into that is really going to help you create those connections with you and your client, and make them, like you said, also coming back over and over and over again. You're not going to leave a place that really makes you feel special. You're going to leave a place that when you walked in the door, no one said anything to you. That's where you leave, right? And you're like, I'm not coming back here. They didn't even acknowledge that I was a human being. But the more personalized you can make things, that stronger the connection, and that more fierce the loyalty someone is going to be to your firm.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One of the things that I love to do too is when you're looking at a process, whatever it is to, a lot of the vendors used to always talk about client touches. How many times am I touching that client, and where do I touch them in the process?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I like to do as well, is write out your whole process and then go back and lay on top of that a client service model. Where are the touches? Where are you going to reach out to them? Where is it an automated reach out, and where is it a very personalized reach out? And then what does the reach out consist of? Is it a phone call? Is it text? Is it email? Is it a written card? Is it something else?
Yes.
It's really defining that all along the way is extremely beneficial so that you can repeat it. That's his whole big thing, is I don't want him to come in one time and have an experience and come in the second time and have such an opposite experience. I want him to have the same great experience every time.
Right. Absolutely. Because going to expectations again, that becomes their expectation. And so if you're having this expectation that's really high, and then the next time, that was okay, but not, wonderful. And then the next time, even if it's great again, then you don't really know what to expect from them. And then it really kind of takes the entire experience down a notch or two because it's not consistent. So absolutely, writing down what your process is and what your service process is so beneficial. And it really also helps if you think about what are your stress points. I always talk to my clients about what are the stress points in your process and what can you do to lay on top of that stress point to maybe alleviate some of that stress. So if there's a long period where, let's say, we're in the construction time and nothing has come in and you've just put down $200,000 and you haven't seen your client and there's not necessarily a reason for a meeting, okay, let's take them out to lunch. It's been 6 weeks. You've just been sending project emails. Maybe it's time to really connect with them. Take them out to lunch. You can talk in more in depth. You can ask any questions. You get that face-to-face connection in a time that's very stressful for them. And so you can kind of alleviate some of that and kind of reinvigorate your relationship at a time when maybe they were getting frustrated with you and the entire process. So yeah, you really do want to plan out all of those client touch points and think about what is appropriate at what time.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. And what I love about all of this too is when we talk about client service and experience, it really doesn't matter what our business is. We all have to address it, regardless, right?
Yes.
And I think sometimes if we don't come into it with a plan, it can feel like we have to do something. Not like this should be done in a way that this is such an awesome opportunity to build a relationship with my client, not done as punishment. I mean, you know what I mean? Sometimes it can almost feel like if we are not in the right frame of mind, all right, well, let me figure out how I can talk to them so they'll get off my back and leave me alone. That's, that if we are so far down the path and we lost our way, that's how it can sometimes feel.
Yes.
If we can start at the beginning and go, I want to start off on the right foot with this client. I want us to be on the same side of the table from the beginning to the end of the project. I want to build I am such a relationship seller. So I want to build such a relationship with this client that they come back to me for their second, third, fourth project. And so how can I do that? What client service model can I create that fits who I am and what I do and how I work with my clients or whatever level of the industry that I'm serving, right?
Yeah.
So that you're not trying to do, the Lexus and the Mercedes or the Maserati value statement if they're buying a Honda, so that you can keep it all in alignment here.
That's right.
But doing it because you get to do it.
Yes.
Not because you have to do it. And when we're further down and it's going off the rails, it sometimes feels like you have to do it. But if you do it in advance, it actually can be a joy and a pleasure.
Yes.
To create it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because now, of course, I'm biased, right? You love talking numbers and all this stuff. And so this is, for me, like absolutely the joy of everything is being able to work in the client experience. But it's fun when you know that you have maybe a surprise plan for a client or you're going to send them a birthday card and all of these little things. That's fun, when you know that you're going to get a little bit of joy and excitement from them and that you're going to connect with them. And absolutely, you want to look at this as a fun and enjoyable thing that's both going to delight your customer, but also it's really going to be really great for you and your business. You're definitely going to be happy as you see them get excited and respond to you and give you these great testimonials. But the more you can plan it out, the better it is, because otherwise, if you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants, you're not going to come up with the same ideas that you are going to be able to if you sit down and plan it out and you make it a part of your process and you know what's coming, what you get to get excited about this special treatment. Then if you're in the middle of something and your project is going awry, you're not going to have the forethought to think, okay, maybe this is time to just kind of take a chill pill. We're going to go out. You think, I'm not going to have time for that. Who's got time for that? Whatever. I'm just not going to deal with that, right? You need to, the more you create this plan from the beginning, the more likely you are to follow it, even through the stressful times, as you've seen it already. Okay, when I took this client out during this stressful time, it worked out really well. I need to do it again. It's going to keep encouraging you every time you get the reaction from your client to keep doing it, and it's really enjoyable, and you're able to see the kind of the results and the benefits over time.
Totally agree. So, Ashley, tell us a little bit about what you're doing to put yourself in a position to be successful and profitable.
Yes. So right now I am working on making my business more scalable. So right now, almost everything that I do is one-on-one. I do the one-on-one consultations where I look through a client's design process, and I let them know, okay, these are all the things that we can do to change your design process, to make it more efficient for you, to make it better for the client. That's a lengthy process, and I enjoy it, but it is a lot of work. And so it, then it really does limit me on how many people I can take on at one time. I had a wait list going just a couple of months ago, and some people had to wait a month or a month and a half. And so to be able to supplement that, I'm now doing some live classes. One's going to be starting September 9th, and then I might start one again in November, and then also doing recorded video courses, so that way people can get all of these principles and all of this information, and it can be self-paced, as designers are so busy, workrooms so busy, and there's so many things going on. Now they'll be able to do things at 2 o'clock in the morning if for some reason they should be up at that time, doing things where it's self-paced. That's the kind of model more that I'm moving towards, and sharing some things that are just designer specific on how to design your design process and all of that stuff, but some things that are not designer specific, like how to manage your the tough conversations, the conflicts with your clients. How do you manage and set expectations from beginning to end? How do you handle all of that stuff? So that's what I am in the process of doing right now. So all of that stuff is kind of continually be coming out throughout the rest of the year.
That's exciting. I know I do similar, because any of us one-to-one, there's only so much that we can do. There's only so much time in the day.
That's right.
And I've found my clients, usually if we're near each other, they do want me to show up showered. And so that's right.
That's right.
Sad as I'm sitting here with a ball cap on my head, but hair in a ponytail. But no, seriously, it does. It takes a lot of time. We all know that. And to scale in any way, shape, or form, regardless of what our business model is, we really have to take all of that into account. So yeah, that sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds fun and exciting.
Yeah. And this way I can reach more people, and I'm not so limited by time. And I'm very excited. It's just a matter right now of figuring out the software. That's the challenge that I'm up against right now, is, how do we get the software to work? But we're making it through.
Good deal. So,
yes.
Ashley, where can people find you? And then I think you also have a promo code for us, don't you?
That's right. So my website is Ashley Uhl Consulting. So it's ASHLEY, and Uhl is UHL. So AshleyUhlConsulting.com. And then the promo code is PROFIT in all caps, and that is 20% off of everything, whether it would be, for a live class or the consultation or the recorded classes. That 20% off covers everything.
Thank you so much for that. And I'll make sure that that is in our show notes. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. I love talking about client experience and service, because here's the deal. If we're not good to our clients, they're not coming back, and they're not going to refer us. And so it very much is the lifeblood of keeping the business going. And I really appreciate you having a very detailed discussion on some things that we can do to improve that.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. It was a joy, and it's my passion. So absolutely, the more I can teach people how important the client experience is and what to do to elevate that, the happier I am. So I'm so happy to be able to share this with everyone.
Well, it's my pleasure having you. Hope you have a great
Thank you.
day.
You too, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to Ashley for joining us today. Check out her programs if that's something that interests you. Our processes and systems are seriously important, and they need to be well established and thoroughly understood. We just talked about that in the podcast, how we have these layers of processes, and then every member of your team needs to know and own the process that they have a part of. If you need help working through your company's growing pains, please reach out to me. I would love to help you as part of the Designer's Inner Circle. Every question you have about your company will be answered, and you're going to feel more in control of your business every day. Working with intention and pricing to profit won't happen by accident, and neither does full company profitability. So work with intention. Go to scarletthreadconsulting.com, check us out, and let us know how we can help you.